time for our next Make It Monday Teen Edition. And this month we are making Fandom fairy jars. So you will pick whatever fandom you want to represent and we're going to turn it into a fairy jar. So like my sample here is Dancing Groot, which you will see a better view of later when we actually make it glow. And let me tell you what supplies we need. So to start, you need a jar, and it needs to have at least part of the surface be smooth because that's where your image is going to go and you want to be able to see it clearly. A plate or paper or something to cover your work surface because it's not really messy, but it has some potential. Some kind of adhesive glue. I'm using some Mod Podge. You can use regular glue, white glue. Some glitter glue if you want to make it sparkle. Paintbrushes to brush the glue on. Tissue paper in a light color. It does have to be a light color, otherwise it won't be able to glow very well. Some tape, some scissors, a ruler. If you have one and access to one, a paper slicer is perfect for cutting the tissue paper, otherwise you can just cut it with your scissors. And your image. So for this one, we're representing the Pokemon fandom. We're doing an Eevee. And once you've got your image found and printed, that is the first thing we have to do is cut it out. And we'll get started on that. And as soon as I get it done, we will go on to the next step. We are just about done cutting out our Eevee, and because we liked the image with the lines on it, as we thought that was the best image, I'm actually cutting it out with a black square behind it so that we get the true silhouette and it will look better in the jar once we get it finished. And so we've got our Eevee shape. We've added a couple pieces of tape, and let's stick it in the jar as close to centered as you can get it. Let's flatten him down as best we can. And if you have a small mouth jar that your hands don't really fit into, you can use something like your ruler or the end of the paintbrush to get it flat. And make sure your shape is in there good, just like that. Now, we are ready to start gluing. Oh, nope, we're not. Our next step is we want to make sure our tissue paper fits our jar. So, as best you can, you just want to freehand it, eyeball it, you can, but you need to measure from where you want your paper to go on your jar. So ours, we need about 5.5 inch wide strip of tissue paper. And so like I said, you can eyeball it, you can measure and cut it with scissors, or if you have access to a nice paper slicer, that will work amazingly. And we are going to put our tissue paper on it, measure it out to about 5.5 inches. Slice it up. We are ready to glue. So you're just gonna glue it on as one big piece. And when I tried making my sample, I did little squares and it didn't work out well. And if you use something like Mod Podge or washable glue, it's really easy to soak it a little bit in water and scrub it off. So now we are going to paint the glue onto our jar. It doesn't have to be super thick, just enough to make sure your tissue paper sticks to it. And You want to make sure you're not going to have any overlapping folds of your tissue paper over your image. So when you are ready to glue, you start with that as the flat part of the paper. And so if it has a couple creases, it's okay, but you don't want a major fold or overlap of the ends of the paper to go there. So, and then you just keep repeating until your entire jar is covered. So we're just about done gluing and layering on our first level of tissue paper. We're not going to add a whole lot, but as you can see, the back of it still has a little bit of a gap. And so what you can do, and what we ended up doing with this one, is we filled in the gap on the back, and then kind of cut it into a frame around the image to make the image really stand out once you light it up. So I'm gonna do something like that with this one. So we just keep adding the Mod Podge. And if you have any excess hanging off the edges, it's real easy to trim it off. Which I'm going to do now because it's just a little too much, and we'll cover up part of our EV. And then once your first layer of glue and tissue paper is dried, you can also add a second layer of glue over top of it, and that will just really make sure and reinforce that your paper is not going anywhere. There is our jar. So now if you decide you do want to add extra to make a frame, see, we did kind of a diamond shaped frame there. You could do it diamond shaped, you could do it oval. There are all kinds of options. I'm going to stick with the diamond shape on this one because I kind of like the way it looks. So you just take a couple layers of your tissue paper, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Cut them into triangles, and just like we did with the first layer, you actually discovered this one works best if you paint onto the piece you're going to add and just completely cover it with your Mod Podge or your glue, and then add it to your jar, making sure it's not covering up any of your silhouette. And then you just pat it down until it's flat. You can paint a layer of glue over top of it, which looks like we're gonna have to do. Okay, so I kind of like the look of this, so we're gonna do a rhombus. That's the shape. We're just doing the two corners because it kind of gives it a really cool look. And just glue down, make sure all the edges are flat. And now we get to wait for it to dry. And then we are going to add the glitter glue because everybody needs a little sparkle in their life. And we will be right back once this is dry. All right, so now our tissue paper is dry, and we are going to add a layer of glitter glue. And you can get a bottle like this and a small enough paintbrush. You can just dip in, scoop it out, and paint it on. And it has the extra benefit of being an extra layer of glue to make sure your tissue paper stays in place. And just keep going until the whole thing is covered. All right, we're just about done with our layer of glitter glue. And the next step will be, if you choose to, you can paint the lid so it matches your Fandom, or you can leave it as is. And then the next step is just to embellish your jar. So with this one, we added some twine. We're gonna do the same thing here. You can use yarn. You can add whatever you want. If you want to add buttons or beads, or if you have a little figurine that goes with your Fandom, whatever you want to add to it, then you can add to it with some hot glue, and to just give it that little bit of extra magic. And let's see, so we can make sure it's centered. There is our Fandom fairy jar. And to make it glow, so you can add a tea light candle to it, or either the little battery operated candles you can put in it, or it can be as simple as glow sticks. Just crack them so they glow, drop them inside, and watch the magic. And I will show you that right now. So we switched rooms so that we can make it dark enough to actually see them glow. And all you do, crack a couple of glow sticks and then drop them in your jar. Turn out the lights and watch your fairy jars glow. It's a really great way to represent your favorite Fandom. So, hope you have fun making your Fandom fairy jars. If you want to share with us your favorite Fandom, post a picture in our comments or share it to our Facebook page or our Instagram page. And keep reading, keep tracking your reading on Beanstack, and have a great summer.